the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, where we got GoVols247, the early riser himself with the Swain event. Ben McKee is here. Ben, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Love the Swain event, and you do a great job with Jason Swain, so make sure that folks tune in to Ben and Jason multiple times a week, and it's great. You also got a new mic, Ben, I saw.
I did. I don't have it right now. I've been using it for a while. My father-in-law ran into like a USB port, like the old school drop-down boxing mic. That's what it looks like, but it's just a regular old USB. I did use when I actually, now that I'm thinking, you probably saw me using Wes Rucker allowed me to borrow his mic while we were in Indianapolis.
Oh,
that's probably the one that you're thinking of. I do have one similar that I just need to hook up, and now I have time to get that situated because basketball season is kind of done.
Yeah,
not really. The actual season is done, but now it's portal season for the next month and a half. And you think, oh, the season's over. I can take a deep breath. Not so fast. Isaac McNeely's coming on a visit. They're visiting JaKobi Gillespie. They've got a whole backcourt that they need to replace. So that's fun.
And then they don't know when the fifth-year ruling is coming.
Yes. Which just, if that happens, it's going to get hectic.
And it affects because the NCAA cannot do. I mean, you were talking about this with Jason on the early part of the week show that I thought you made a good point of just the NCAA, the dead period right at this point is the dumbest thing where you have to fit this in, and now it makes things really awkward with Gillespie, and it halts momentum you have in certain because a week is a lot of time. Things can really change. Guys can think it's so stupid, and it's just, especially it penalizes the teams that go deep in the tournament, because now that they can give their full attention, it's like, oh, all right, well, sorry, here's a dead period for this amount of time. It's so stupid.
It is. It's very stupid. I guess the good news is that they're still allowed to have contact. It's not a total dead period. They just can't have in-person or on-campus visits, but you can still work the phones and have conversations with players, agents, representation, all of that fun stuff that goes on in the portal nowadays. But it's so NCAA to throw this in at the beginning of April. I guess maybe because the Final Four is going on, and they have different events. Like they announced different award winners. Like last year, Dalton Connect went out to Houston last year for when he won the Julius Erving Award, and Chaz is up for Jerry West, and Zakai is up for Bob Cousy. I know Chaz is going out there this weekend. I don't know if Zakai is, but maybe that's why, because kind of the college basketball world convenes at the Final Four. But I still think it's pretty dumb and really hurts the teams that played a long time, because I don't think it's as hurtful for teams that play deep into the NCAA tournament as maybe some people make it out to be. I know that's always a conversation every year with football, basketball, baseball, teams playing deep into the postseason and how that hurts them in the portal. I like Kim Caldwell's answer the other day of hey, I think it's the best thing going and can help us the best is that, hey, we're still playing. So obviously we're doing something right. And Tennessee was obviously doing a great job of still working the portal while playing. You obviously aren't able to host as many visitors, but I don't know that that's as big of a deal in today's era as maybe it once was. And the hurtful part of it is your season ends and you come out and you have a dead period where you can't host visitors for a week. Not necessarily two things coinciding at once. So typical NCAA being dumb as usual.
And you're on Aaron Rodgers watch, Ben. You just can't get out of here, man. You're just having to wait on everything.
Yeah, it's not fun. It is waiting season. Maybe that's what I should call it instead of portal season. I'm not thrilled. I don't want anything to do with Aaron Rodgers. I think he's washed as a football player. So not only will I have to watch bad football, but then I have to listen to all of his shenanigans in the process that I don't care about one way or the other. I just want you to shut up and play good football, and that's not going to happen. So, and I think that they're going to draft Jalen Milroe. It's going to be him or Jackson Dart, which I could talk myself into Jackson Dart. I'd be fine with that. I could also honestly talk myself into Jalen Milroe. Like, if you're going to take a quarterback and it's not in the first round, like, I'm okay with taking a flyer on Jalen Milroe. I've seen crazier things like Will Levis and the Titans, but that's a separate conversation that I'll allow Ryan Shumpert to address. So, yeah, times are fun right now, but it could be worse. I could be a Braves fan.
You just had to slip that in at the very end. 0-7. No 0-7 teams ever made the playoffs.
Until this year, the Braves will be the first.
I don't know, man. I don't know if you saw Ohtani's walk-off last night and the way that things are going in the lineup that Atlanta trotted out here. Even with Knoxville's own Spencer Strider coming back ASAP, still no Acuna for a little bit. I don't know. Like, it's rough, man. I think it's never been more over, and it's pretty disarming because it's something I would come to expect with the Falcons or like a Hawks situation. It's not something you expect with the Braves, so it's very disarming to experience this kind of start. But it is what it is. But it also allows me to give my full attention to Tennessee baseball here because I'm not like having to be like, oh, I need to tune back in to see what Chris Sale's doing. It's like, no, Vitello's got my entire weekend. I might even tune in some Tuesday night games. No, I'm not doing that. I refuse. Like, I refuse. I can't do it. I can't do 12 pitchers for Tennessee trotting out. I won't
Tuesday nights have become fun if you're at the ballpark. It's actually a really fun environment. The crowds have been awesome, especially as it's gotten warmer.
Yeah.
But the 12,
on the couch taking I'm not doing it.
Yeah. AJ Russell, that was fun on Tuesday night. The ETSU game, even though it resulted in a Tennessee loss, that was a good baseball game, fun back and forth. But yeah, when Tennessee Tech score was only 7-1, but when you're double-digit runs up on somebody and the run rule is happening, it can be a bit much.
Bib McKee, you have one word to define the 2024-2025 Tennessee men's basketball season. What's your word you use?
I can't go Charles Barkley and give you like 3 words when you ask for one.
You can do 1 and then you can do 3 after.
Oh, my one word. Oh, man. Successful is the first word that comes to mind, but that's not emphatic enough as I want it to be. I think it was successful. I think historical, legendary seems a little bit much because they didn't make the Final Four, but I'd say it's somewhere in between simply being historical and legendary, if that makes sense, because Zakai Ziegler cemented himself as the best point guard in Tennessee basketball history in my mind. His number 5 should be up there in the rafters with Chris Lofton. I think Chris Lofton and Zakai should be right next to each other. I don't really care if Zakai meets all of the rules or whatnot. And I am a proponent of like having strict rules when it comes to jersey retirements. But I think there's a bit of there's one of the big reasons I think Zakai should go up there is something that rules can't attest for. And that's the overall impact that he has had in elevating Tennessee basketball and taking it to that next tier. I'm not going to go as far as Kate Phillips did and say it's a blue blood now, but I think Tennessee basketball is in that tier right behind the Blue Bloods. I think it's always been a top 25, top 30 to top 40 program at minimum. I think Zakai and Jahmai and the other players in the Rick Barnes era, but especially Zakai, I think has really helped elevate the program to where it's a top 15, top 10 program, somewhere in there, which I think is a heck of an accomplishment for a program at a football school. And I think that is something that, yes, you should have strict rules when it comes to a jersey retirement, but that's something that those strict rules can't account for. And me being a Memphis Grizzlies fan, I have been poked and prodded and joked on for retiring Tony Allen and Zach Randolph and Mike Conley and Mark Gasol, the core 4. But for any Grizzlies fans out there, like they understand why the jersey is going up in the rafters. It's because of the impact they had on the city, the community, the franchise that wins and losses can't account for. They helped take that franchise to the next level. They made people care about it, and people already cared about Tennessee basketball. There's always been a great following. I just think that this group spearheaded by Zakai took it to the next level, and that's on top of the multiple records he now holds, a 4-year player, fan favorite. I think there's so much that makes sense. So that's kind of why a long-winded way of saying I think it's somewhere in between historical and legendary, because you have instances like that. You have the team going to the Elite Eight for the second consecutive season. I think the win over Kentucky is the biggest win in program history, because you've never won an Elite Eight game. So it's got to be one of the Sweet 16 games. That was the first ever matchup with Kentucky in the postseason. Your biggest rival, I think the most underrated rivalry in college basketball, and you won it, and you beat them down pretty good with a bunch of their fans in attendance. So I think the program did a lot of tremendous things, a lot of program firsts this year, both from a single season perspective, but also a historical perspective with some of the individual accolades. Chaz Lanier, I think he's got a great chance of winning the Jerry West Award as the best shooting guard in college basketball. Jahmai's shot against Alabama. There's a lot of things we could spend hours on discussing, like Tennessee first this year. And I think for those reasons, that's why, again, I'm not going to call it legendary, because I think you got to save that for when they finally make the Final Four. But it was historical for a lot of reasons.
I'm still holding out hope for Nick Calathis and Kosta Koufos to get their numbers hanging in the rafters.
Only if we do John Lure first.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Stromile Swift.
I wouldn't be opposed. That was a little bit before my time. I was a youngin' then, but I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Maybe a little Jason Williams, Allen Iverson action in there, all like the week that Allen Iverson was a Grizzly.
I mean, there are a lot of options here at Ben McKee. I would also say, like, I wonder if you agree. I think my word would be perspective, because I think Tennessee got every ounce, or Rick Barnes and this staff got every ounce out of what they had. And losing to a 1 seed in back-to-back years, nothing to scoff at. They weren't upset. They got to the second weekend in back-to-back years, Elite Eight, back-to-back Elite Eight appearances, Sweet 16 3 years in a row. This was a perspective year for me, because I think last year you were one of the 3 best teams in college basketball with the best player in college basketball. And that one hurt, because if you just get some region luck, and like if you just avoid Purdue or UConn until the Final Four, like we look at this program very differently, because like Dalton was good enough to take this team to a Final Four national championship type situation. I'm not saying they would have won a national title if they avoided Purdue and UConn in the region, but they were a victim of like chalk the past 2 years, where it's just like they just needed one of these 2 years for one of the 1 seeds to go down before they got there. And it didn't happen. And there's no, like, Houston was just a better version of Tennessee this year. There's no, we're in a historical 4-1 seed situation. It's fine. Like, Tennessee was somewhere between the 5th and 8th best team in the country, I think, this year, somewhere in that range. And that's great. Like, it's a great, like you said, they're a top 10, top 15 program right now in men's college basketball. And I think the difference in what I felt, the conclusion of this year versus last year, was this year I was like, man, there's like they went far. They beat Kentucky when it mattered most. They get to another Elite Eight. They dealt with a really rough hand in terms of scholarships and Cam leaving the program, JP not being available, like super thin throughout the year. And to maximize what they had, I thought was just huge, and a testament to how good of a staff and how good of a job that Rick and his staff did this year. But last year felt more like a gut punch, where like last year you're talking yourself into the Purdue win, where you're like, well, Connect could go for 48, and that could like we can figure out a way, and maybe Awaka can handle Edey, and we throw JP in there, and we'll rotate bigs to see what we can do, and maybe he doesn't get all the foul calls, and we can find a way to make it happen, because Dalton Connect was just a generational type guy, and you just were like, I don't want to waste this, and it was a different type of deal. And this year, I don't know if you felt the same, but I never felt like this team was going to win a national championship this year. I did think that they could make an Elite Eight and they could be a Final Four team. But you look at, I mean, even if they win that game against Houston, there's no answer for Cooper Flagg in the Final Four. Like I don't think that would have gone well for Tennessee, but it felt different. Like last year felt like a gut punch where I'm like, man, Tennessee really could have won a national championship last year, depending on how things were. I don't think that was the case this year, but I think it's a testament to Barnes to be able to reload like this and to get to back-to-back Elite Eights with this team.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said. And Tennessee, I feel like was a tier 2 team. I think there's a clear tier 1. It's the Final Four teams. And Tennessee, I think the best way to describe it is Tennessee's capable of beating any team in the country, any day, anywhere, anytime. Like I do think obviously Houston's the better team. They showed that. But if you play 5 games, Tennessee's finding a way to win one of them.
Yeah.
It's not like they'd go 0-5, and I would pick Duke to beat Tennessee, but Tennessee's capable of beating Duke, just like we saw Tennessee beat Florida and beat Auburn. So, yes, there was a big difference in the game on Sunday, and fans should be frustrated about losing by 19 points. Like, that's not acceptable. Losing to Houston, you understand. Losing by 19 points shouldn't be the end result, but that's semantics at this point in my mind. A loss is a loss, and you did run into the number 1 seed. But at the end of the day, you were capable of beating anybody in the country, which means that you were one of the best teams in the country. And unfortunately, 2 straight years of the tournament luck not being on your side, because if you have a 1 seed go down before you have to play them, then you're probably going to back-to-back Final Fours instead of back-to-back Elite Eights. And so there's a little bad luck involved, and that seems to be the consensus of Rick Barnes in the tournament at Tennessee, with running into FAU and Loyola Chicago and their Final Four runs. But there's still a difference in losing to those teams and losing to Purdue, losing to Houston. And that's why I think you've seen such a limited amount of backlash. And really, I haven't really even seen any backlash. Maybe I just did a good job of avoiding it. I did drive back to Knoxville after the game, so I wasn't on social media, but I feel like the rational fans have a proper perspective of, man, that was a really fun group to root for on a lot of different levels. It was a really fun regular season. SEC tournament was fun. NCAA tournament was fun. You can have a great appreciation for all of that while also being frustrated a little bit and upset that you still haven't gotten to the Final Four, that you played one of your worst halves of basketball at the most important time. Like you can juggle both of those emotions and appreciate the regular season while also wanting more. I think that's been a big topic of conversation in the last couple of years as fans have criticized Rick Barnes for being regular season Rick or whatnot. Like you can do both. You can be appreciative for what you have while also wondering, okay, like this is fun, but what needs to happen in the portal to take that next step, to get over the hump and get to the Final Four? And I do agree with what you said. I never felt like Tennessee was going to win the national championship, but I thought they were a Final Four contender, and they were right at the door and ran into a better basketball team and played its worst half of the season right there with that first half in Gainesville at the worst time. So I think you should be able to find some peace and joy in the fact that Tennessee was able to get as far as they did. And at the end of the day, the program has only ever been to 3 Elite Eights, and you've done it. 2 of them are in back-to-back seasons. So I think there's been a lot of proper perspective and appreciation this last week or so as Tennessee was able to make that run, which would have been a totally different conversation if you had not handled business against Kentucky the way that they did.
I agree. Ben McKee, the portal. It's crazy. Like the Tennessee going up to see JaKobi Gillespie, Greenville local kid, kind of like a Chaz Lanier situation with Ensworth from this past cycle. He goes from Belmont to Maryland this past year. What is the latest on Gillespie? McNeely coming in from Virginia. It's interesting to me because the thing that probably maybe intrigues me the most about Gillespie and like the 5-year stuff is he would have 2 potentially. Like that may be a 2-year stopgap as Troy Anderson eases into being Zakai 2.0. No pressure at all that we're putting all that on Troy. But you look at it, and it makes sense to me that Gillespie with 40% 3-point shooter, McNeely it seems like it would be the Chaz replacement. And that seems like a seamless fit with a lot of shooting in the backcourt. It seems like that's something that's a bigger priority for Barnes. Is like, yeah, the D needs to be where it is, but it's also like we're going to be a 3-point heavy offense. Like that's just kind of the deal, especially when you don't have the kind of inside presence that you can throw in a lot in half court sets. Like, hey, part of the deal is like you're gonna shoot a lot of threes. Like I don't think that's going anywhere for Tennessee and their mindset, but. What are you hearing about him? And then the Robert Morris kid, as the latest stretch 4 option, because that one's more, I guess, the most curious to me, because I think you're in a situation where if JP's back, Cade's back, you have Dwayne Brown coming in from Hoover, and then you have Felix back. Like that's kind of crap. Like I'm not sure you necessarily like. It's better to have too many, as we just saw last year, where you're like, oh, we got thin in a hurry. It might be better to have more than you might anticipate needing in 25, 26. But what do you make of all that right now?
Yeah, right now, obviously, Isaac McNeely and JaKobi Gillespie are at the top of the board, and those are the two with the most buzz right now. And I would go as far as to say Tennessee is the front runner. That does not, by any stretch, yes, for both. I would say Tennessee's the front runner for both, and that doesn't mean that it's done. It's never done in today's era until they have signed on the dotted line. But Tennessee was viewed as the front runner for McNeely going into his visit. I haven't heard anything to suggest otherwise, and I just based off of what people were saying prior to the visit, it seemed like he wanted to come to a quick decision. So because he wanted to come to a quick decision, I think we are on commitment watch for him. We're recording this on Thursday morning, so any time between now and the end of the weekend. And it does seem like it's down to Louisville and Tennessee. Louisville has picked up several guards out of the portal. I would think that is good news for Tennessee, but in today's era of positionless basketball, I guess that doesn't mean much as well on the other side of the coin, because Louisville's going to take a bunch of shots, and they would love to have McNeely in that regard because they're going to get him a lot of looks from three. But I think Tennessee's system fits him perfectly as well, and he can do. You mentioned the Chaz comparison; he can do everything that Chaz did off of the pin downs and curls and all the different motions and the looks from three that Chaz got. Isaac McNeely can fill those shoes exactly. I feel like so we're on commitment watch with him. He's the one with the most buzz. He's been on campus. He's the only one that's been on campus to this point, and that would obviously be a great addition. And if you can add him with JaKobi Gillespie, and Tennessee went and visited him on Wednesday, that went well from my understanding. Which it wasn't going to go bad, right? The next step is getting him on campus. John Rothstein did report on Thursday morning that, according to his father, he is setting up visits with Tennessee and Villanova. I did check in before we pressed record to see if they had gotten a visit date set yet, and I have not heard again at the time of this recording. But I would imagine maybe next weekend, since that stupid dead period we talked about is ongoing from today until next Thursday or Friday, the 10th or the 11th. I can't remember which one. But the Tennessee football having a spring game next weekend, I think that makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if that's when he ends up making it in on his visit. If you can land those two, I think you're sitting real pretty because you have one of the best point guards in the country and one of the best point guards in the portal, one of the best players in the portal, and you're adding Isaac McNeely, also one of the best players in the portal who can absolutely shoot the lights out of the basketball. That's a great first step. And I think that they would like to add 4 to 5 guys in addition to what they have returning and what they're signing out of the high school ranks. And it's obviously going to be very guard heavy because of how many guards they are losing. But I do think that there's a big emphasis this offseason. Not that there hasn't been the last 2 off seasons, because you've seen Rick go out and add shooting. I think there's a big emphasis to add shooting this time around to, I don't even want to call it offensive lulls, because I think this past season, the offense got a bad rap and got mixed in with some previous offenses that they go into these stretches of not scoring. And that never really happened outside of, it did happen in the Houston game and in Florida. Like there were a couple of games here and there, but this was, I think, in the KenPom era, the second most efficient offense that Tennessee has ever had. Not just Rick Barnes, but in Tennessee program history, where it's been the second most efficient offense in KenPom. You'll have to double check me on that one. But even with that being said, I think Rick has done a great job of adjusting to needing more shooting the last couple of years. He went and got Gainey and Dalton. Last year he goes and gets Chaz, but then Igor shot it well at Charlotte, and Darlington Dubar shot it very well.
Takai only takes threes or shots at the rim, like he did there. Like he has two types of shots.
Yes, so like you going into it, you're like, oh, Chaz O'Neal, Darlington Dubar, Igor Milicic Jr. Like you're looking at their shooting numbers at their previous school, and you can see the emphasis. As much of an adjustment as he has made the last 2 years, I think he's going to continue to hammer that home even more so this upcoming season to maybe avoid the Houston type of situation happening all over again. I think he's tired of stubbing his toe for the same reason, even if the consistency throughout the season has been much better than in years past, if that makes sense. So I think shooters are going to be the top priority. The swingman from Robert Morris, the Spaniard, I'll let you pronounce his name so I don't butcher it. I think you do need an Igor type replacement, like a stretch four, somebody that can do a lot of different things for you, a Swiss Army knife. I think he would be a great addition. They've had conversations with him, but until it gets serious, he'll need to take a visit to Tennessee in my mind. And as far as I know at this point, that has not been set up yet. You also have the Elijah Freeman kid at Lincoln Memorial, who's an interesting prospect. There's going to be some big money involved there. So if you're Tennessee, I think you need to make sure.
Expensive in a hurry with Freeland, Gillespie, McNeely.
Well, I think they're going to have plenty of money. They've been in a healthy.
I mean, that's a lot because aren't transfers like? I mean, not to get too in the weeds here with NIL, but like transfers more expensive than guys out of high school right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Unless it's like the Nate Mintz or the Braden Burries, but I think even at that point, like transfers are probably a bit more expensive. And my thing with the Elijah Freeman kid is like, that's going to be big money. And I think Tennessee could swing it financially. The question is, he's making a big jump going from Lincoln Memorial to SEC, coming off of the SEC's best season ever, the best conference college basketball has ever seen. You better nail your evaluation, because if you don't, that's going to be a lot of money. If he can't make the jump, like a lot of people think that he will, but if he doesn't, that's a lot of money sitting on your bench. So
how many years does he have availability?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Like 2 or 3, I think.
Because that could actually help a little bit, right? Like even if the eval doesn't look good early, like if he's around for a while, like
that makes.
But then again, you're still pouring a lot of money in. If he doesn't figure it out, then you have multiple years of just a bad eval that's putting you in a financial hole.
And at this point in Rick's career,
I
mean, how patient is he and the staff going to be? They're going to be in win now mode. So they may end up like going all in on him, but I do know that like there's going to be a lot of teams going all in on him. So with what it will take financially, you just better make sure that he is ready to play right away and be able to contribute and make sure that money is worth it. So that's a complicated situation is what I'm getting at. But to summarize, I think they're going all in on adding shooters. I think they're in a great spot with Gillespie and McNeely. I think they're the front runner for both at this moment. And they're going to do a lot of work. And I think if you start with those two, I think you're in a great position to not rebuild, but reload. It'll look different, but you're reloading, not rebuilding. Very much like Tony Vitello has the last couple of years. That's kind of the feel I get with the basketball portal right now with Tennessee. It feels very similar to Tennessee baseball in the sense of there's a lot of talented players available, and a lot of those talented players want to come play at Tennessee.
And with the house settlement coming this year, I think you want to go all out and just like spend and just kind of like, and then we'll see what the landscape is after, but beef up everything you can right now and then see what happens. Because it's just, no one really knows. Like you just like, we have no idea what it's going to mean for all these different rosters and salaries and this, that, and the other. I'm curious, like the scholarship numbers, like, do you think with Barnes leaving a couple open last year, to me, I'm like doing the math and like, depending on who they bring in here in the portal, and then if they add one more high school guy like a Braden Burries, like there's still room where you're like, okay, they're going to be kind of like, they're going to be filled out here. Like you're not going to have a couple open spots like Barnes had a couple of years or last year. Do you feel like that's kind of where they're trending, is that this is going to be a pretty filled out roster when it's all said and done?
I definitely think it'll be more filled out than last year's. And Braden Burries, it does seem like he's trending to Arizona. I think Bryce James, LeBron's son, who is represented by Clutch, who is already signed with Arizona. I believe Braden Burries has the same representation. I believe there's a push to make sure Bryce and Braden are playing together. Arizona also just picked up the post player who's top 10 player overall in the country, the 5-star. So that one, it feels like it's trending away from Tennessee at this point. And with that being said, I think if they add another high school guy, it would be somebody that pops up over the summer, like we've
Are
seen.
they out on Abel?
I wouldn't call them out. I forget about him, honestly, just because there's not any buzz.
That's not a good sign.
No. And I don't know if that's on Tennessee's side. I don't know if that's on his side. I did see just recently, within the last couple of days, he's taken a visit elsewhere. I forget which school it was. So he seems like he's still in the visit-taking process. Maybe Tennessee circles back. Maybe he circles back to Tennessee. I just have not heard any buzz. So he's not on the forefront of my mind at all at the moment. I wouldn't rule it out, but also it just does not feel likely at all. So I think if they add a high school guy, it would be somebody that pops up in the summer, like we've seen in the
Zakai thing.
A Zakai, a Tobe Awaka type of thing. So that's what, 3 high school guys?
Yeah.
3 high school guys, Dwayne Brow, Amari Evans, and Troy Henderson. And that leaves you about 4 to 5 spots open for transfers. I think the transfer class will be 4 to 5 guys. And that what puts you at, you got 4
JP,
returning.
Cade, Bishop back. So
that puts you at like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly where they'll be at, is in that 11 to 13 range. And then you hope somebody doesn't quit on the team middle of the year. You hope that somebody doesn't have season-ending foot surgery. And I don't know that they want to just have every roster spot filled, because like this year, it obviously would have helped, but they didn't know that at the time. I think it was a very sound decision. Their thought process was, if we have every scholarship filled, that's 13 players we have to keep happy.
Yeah.
In today's day and age of the transfer portal and NIL, it's really hard to keep that many people happy when only 5 people can get on the floor. So I don't know that they love the idea of having every roster spot full, but I think that they'll. And I also think they like leaving that spot or two open in case a Santiago Vescovi, a Tobe, as a Kai pops up end of summer, middle of the year. So I think the roster will be more filled out. I don't know that it'll be all 13 or 15, because if the revenue sharing stuff passes and they go to 15 scholarships, then that's even more to keep happy and to fill out. So if it's 13 or 15, I don't know that they will have a full roster in that regard, but I think they'll at least have a spot or two open, unless just the perfect scenario works out for them in which they're comfortable with who they're bringing in.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good problem to have. I think the most curious one to me, and we can end on this, Ben, is it seems like Amari Evans is a different kind of freshman coming in, and you kind of wonder, because you're losing Jemiah, you're losing Jordan Gainey, and that was the other part of the Cam Carr situation and just being thin. I think it hurt not having JP. Like every 4th game was like my thing. It's like you didn't miss him for 3 games straight, and then there'd be a game where you're like, oh, this is the JP game. Like JP would have been really helpful here. I think with Cam and him being gone, like Gainey had more minutes, and it was just one of those where I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that Tennessee got thin in certain spots, and it was with Gainey, because it forced Barnes to play Gainey a lot, and Gainey was instrumental in Tennessee getting to that next level. And when you have less options, you're like, hey, let's just play Gainey and Meshack and Chaz Lanier a bunch, and they're going to figure it out. And I just think that was helpful to play those guys a bunch of minutes, because they were just huge positives for the team. And this team kind of went the way of Zakai, Chaz, and Gainey throughout the year offensively. So I don't know. I think there is plus and minus to having a thin roster in terms of schollies and all that kind of stuff. But I do think Gainey was a huge benefactor from a smaller rotation and a smaller roster this year, maybe more than anybody else. But Amari Evans, to me, would you be surprised if he's a starter next year because of what you're losing defensively? That like him just being the kind of plug and play defense first guy and not being a one and done type of guy where you're like, Amari to me is just because of how much you're losing from last year's team to this year. That like when I'm thinking about who could start and where things are with the portal and everything else, I'm like, man, I don't know. Like you might be pretty old with McNeely and Gillespie, and then you have Felix back, and then we'll see if it's JP or the Robert Morris kid or whoever at the stretch 4 spot. I don't know. I could talk myself into Amari, like letting him learn on the fly and being that wing guy. Like, hey, like go show us why you're a big time prospect, and go defend 1 through 5 and see how it works. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Amari Evans, and I wonder if fans will, that he finds his way into the starting rotation earlier than later. Do you agree?
I would be surprised if he starts. I will not be surprised if he plays a lot. I think he will play a lot, given how much they have lost, especially on the defensive side. And I think he's going to be able to contribute defensively right away. And he's like Bishop Boswell could have played if it was only a defensive game this season.
Yeah.
Like Bishop was by far ready defensively this season and could have contributed more if he didn't also have to play offense.
Yeah. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'10" wingspan. Like, I don't know, man. Like, he has a build that seems more ready to me.
Bishop or Amari?
Amari.
Oh, I think Amari's going to play a lot. I just don't think it's going to be in the starting lineup. I think if he's in the starting lineup, I think it's closer to the postseason than the starting than the start of the season. And you probably have had an injury or two, because I think it sounds great for us to say, yeah, just let him learn on the fly. But Rick Barnes does not operate with that mindset. Yeah. He will not give him that type of leash. But I do think that Amari will play quite a bit. I would be surprised if he doesn't play a lot as a true freshman. I think he's just as good defensively as Bishop and Jemai coming in from high school. The difference is I think Amari is more advanced offensively. Yeah. His shot is in a better spot. And I think what will really get him on the floor, obviously the defense, but what makes him so great defensively is his mentality. He's not scared at the moment. He's got that dog in him that Zakai Ziegler has. That's why Amari is family friends with Zakai and Armani and the Ziegler family. They're cut from the same cloth. Amari is originally from Pittsburgh, so he played AAU ball with Armani Ziegler, Zakai's little brother, and has been around them and been around those AAU teams from New York. And maybe played with Tobe, or I know was in the same organization with Tobe and Zakai at minimum, but that mindset and that mentality, not being afraid of the moment, being a dog, like that'll get him on the floor very quickly. The moment will not be too big for him. And then he's already great defensively with his athleticism, his size that you mentioned. So I would be surprised if he starts. Part of that, a lot of it being because he's going to be a true freshman and he's going to have to prove himself to Rick. I also, with them bringing in 4 to 5 guys, I know we're only talking about really 2 right now with McNeely and Gillespie, but others will pop up that they will add an Igor, a Dubar. Like, is he going to be able to overcome older players that they're bringing in out of the portal as well? And what will still be a bit of a developmental year for him. Yeah. I imagine with the portal class that they're going to put together, it's going to be a bit more of a win now mode than a developmental mode. Obviously, like there will be a touch of with Amari, even as a freshman that I think will play quite a bit. So is he going to be able to get on the floor over those veterans that they're bringing in from the portal? That would be surprising if it's right away or even before conference play. I think, again, like I said, if Amari's starting, I think it's second half of SEC play, and you might have had a couple of things go wrong. But, hey, maybe I need to be an optimist and say, hey, Amari's starting in the second half of SEC play because he's just having a really dang good freshman season.
Ben McKee, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at GoVols247 this week?
Yeah, anything and everything. You got football practice going on, spring weekend, next weekend to wrap up spring practice. So Ryan Callahan and Patrick Brown have all of that coverage. We've got a College World Series rematch at Lindsey Nelson Stadium this weekend. Doesn't feel the same as we thought it would when the schedule came out, but Tennessee baseball still rocking and rolling. They're number 1, have a great chance to go back-to-back national championships. So I'll have plenty of Tennessee baseball coverage at the site this weekend as well, and of course continued coverage of Tennessee basketball in the transfer portal, all at GoVols247.com.
And hey, watch out for those curfews on Sunday. to watch out for those curfews here in Knox on Sunday afternoon. Ben McKee, always a pleasure, and we'll talk to you. And I'll talk to you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.